Conflict, conflict, conflict. It's the lifeblood of story. But what is it? And how does a writer implement it? Let's talk about it.
Hi, I'm Yaku.
And I'm Mark.
And welcome back to On the Page. It's the show where we talk about the writing behind our recent short films. Today we will be looking at our film Alle Grappies Op Stokkie, or All Jokes Aside for all of you non-Afrikaans speakers. So if you haven't seen it, click on the link right here, go watch it, because there's some serious spoilers ahead. It's cool, don't worry, we'll wait for you. It'll only take like 10 minutes. It's cool, we'll be here. Oh, you're back? Cool. Let's get into it.
In our previous episode on structure, we mentioned Aaron Sorkin's advice on intention and obstacle. Simply put, a character wants something, but something is standing in their way of getting it, and therefore, conflict arises.
But conflict for conflict's sake isn't really all that meaningful. It's the context of the concept, structure, and characters that inform the conflict. This is why we're addressing it now after going through all those topics in all of our other videos, because conflict is interwoven into every aspect of a story. What is the right type of conflict for your specific character to address?
We mentioned that we're addressing conflict after all the other topics because, for example, in our video on characters and character trees, which you can watch here, we mentioned that a character's want and need are usually in contrast to one another. A character wants something, but the thing that they want is not necessarily the thing that they need to become a more developed person. And I say developed and not better person because a character may develop negatively in terms of their morality, given the concept of the narrative.
So yes, the cliche joke or expression of the real meaning of the story was the friends that we made along the way is a saying because it is so ingrained into who we are and storytelling. And speaking of making friends, let's become friends right now by clicking on that subscribe button. Come on, there it is. It's right there and click. Thanks, I really appreciate that.
Ja.
Kom. 1, 2, 3. Pas op. Pas. Stop neer. Oké, ik kom terug. 1, 2, 3. Oké, 4. 1, 2, 3.
So here we are on the page, and as you can see, the line where Angie and Willie talk to each other about where they're taking the doghouse was ad-libbed on the set on the day, because that's what happens when you have amazing actors who really inhabit the characters and know exactly what the characters want and need. But we have here this part where Willie and Angie appear out the side of their flat carrying what was the wooden structure, a giant doghouse. They hold it each side, but it's awkward to carry. The heft of the doghouse is an example of the external conflict that will go on to prompt the internal conflict. This is the context of the scene and naturally gives the characters something to talk about. Sometimes this can be as simple as making the characters do something. Put them in a scenario and see how they interact. And on the script here you'll see lines like, "This is ridiculous, I can't see you," become foreshadowing and more subtextually relevant as the film is about them not being able to see each other anymore in the terms of their relationship. Subtext requires context.
You've heard it before. Good dialogue has subtext. Subtext, subtext, subtext. You've read it in every screenwriting book. Do not write on the nose dialogue. But Mark and I couldn't for the life of us figure out how to write good dialogue that was subtextual until we hit on an idea that could seem counterintuitive. We should just not think about what is the subtext in every single word of this line as we're writing it. Let me explain. What we came to realize is that when we did think about it that way, then we were writing from the outside in, consciously trying to jam subtext into every single word. What ended up happening was that the dialogue became extremely clunky and therefore dull and meaningless.
And no one likes it when things are meaningless. But you know what is super meaningful? Destroying that like button. It really helps us out. Thanks! What we found is that if we have a strong foundation of who these characters are, what they want, how they express themselves, and what is standing in their way, then the dialogue becomes more intentional and organically subtextual. Now, we're not saying this is the only way of doing it, and we don't want to interfere with your process that you've already found works for you. This is just what Yaku and I have found works for us. We like to really get stuck into a place of where the character is coming from, and then if they are built in an interesting way, and the context and concept of the story itself are well informed, then the conflict and dialogue starts to emerge.
Kan ons net asseblief oor iets anders praat?
Fyn. Wat het jy vandag op die TV gekyk? Is dit trivial genoeg vir jou?
Ja, weet jy, ek het eintlik hierdie nuwe show gekyk. My Life is Falling to Pieces. Ek weet nie of jy al daarvan gehoor het nie.
Is daar al 'n nuwe episode uit? Ek dink jy se kanselleer.
Nee, dis terug. Maar dis edgier en grittier en alles is aaklig.
Het ek iets gelees daaroor? Een kritiek het gesê sy sou dit byvoorbeeld baie meer geniet het. As die Willie karakter minder van 'n man baby was.
Angie and Willie have a tired relationship. They don't express themselves to one another properly, and this is not a healthy way to sustain a relationship. They've gotten themselves stuck in a rut. And you can see this here when Willie is talking about watching a show called My Life is Falling to Pieces. To which Angie eventually responds, I've read that one critic would have enjoyed it much more if that Willie character wasn't such a man baby. What they say to each other while lugging around this giant doghouse speaks volumes to their relationship. They know exactly what backhanded insults to say to one another.
Hoorie, sy het Tannie nie dood aan emfyseem nie. Huh?
So when Willie says here, didn't your auntie die of emphysema, that's really the turning point in the conflict. This takes the narrative and conflict down a trajectory that demands resolution. Their relationship cannot continue this way.
Alles valt so af. Jy weet? Het is alsof my brein homself verteer.
What is the meaning of the conflict? What is the result of the conflict? We need to see what the conflict was actually all about. This is the revelation. Angie is also dealing with mental illness and actually cannot deal with Willie's behavior anymore, because it is also bringing out a negative side in her. Their relationship has reached critical mass and needs to end. But we sort of leave it on an open note where Willie has one more opportunity to make amends, as Angie needs him to fill in at the careers day at the high school that she works at. Even though they are arguing, life continues. They are both holding on to the remnants of their relationship. A more sort of organic result of the conflict than a clean break, so to speak.
Okay, so that's it for this episode, all about conflict. Remember, good natural conflict makes your story better. But what really shouldn't cause any conflict is whether or not you should subscribe. Do it now, the button is right there. And no need to argue, just press the like button. And if you really do want to argue, leave us a comment below. We try and respond to all of them.
So until next time, go out there, stay safe, and
Make your movie.